All right, here we go. You got your spreadsheet, you've got your process maps, you've determined what should be on your action item list. Let's get started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you ClaimWizard, and I'm going to give you a suggestion. So what I say when we first start entering in our action item list is in our workflow is that you don't use your new claim workflow to start with, because that's probably the one that the overwhelming majority of people in ClaimWizard use on a day-to-day basis. We're going to use an unused workflow, and then we're going to use that as our sandbox. And when you like how it works and you've tested it, and I'll show you how to test a claim too, you can copy or clone it over to your original, the workflow that you're actually going to use on a day-to-day basis. Otherwise, you run the risk of putting out half-completed, non-tested, draft things out to your team to use, and then they kind of get caught up in that. So this is what I'm going to show you. So what I recommend that you do here is it defaults to new claim. Like I said, it's like the overwhelming majority of what people use. New claim, pre-litigation or litigation support, and reopen supplemental are probably the most common ones that get used. What I suggest is use umpire because nobody actually uses the umpire one. Here I've actually had a copy. So if you like what is in, or you want to use as a starting point the new claim, you can always hit clone. So your clone, start where you like, right? Start with one you like, and then you're going to select your destination one. So maybe we're going to go over to umpire and then overwrite everything that's in there. So even if there was some other stuff, you're basically clearing it out and starting over. We're going to clone our workflow. Do you really want to do it? Please read this and then go through. So if we go now over to umpire, it doesn't look like it changed on the screen because it's exactly the same. But for the sake of doing this, I will open a completely blank one, right? So this is where you come in. You would start to add your default action items. It would walk you through this section, which I'm going to cover. And then you would save it. I'm just going to close this for now. And then you're going to have them kind of listed as you go. So you're going to take that worksheet of yours and you're going to put them in one for one, right? So when they first go in here, we'll just switch over to new claim because there's lots of them in here. When they first go in, you can set them as draft or enabled, disabled or enabled, right? So I would actually put them all in as disabled. And when you save it and go back, you're going to see that it looks different. It's not in blue, it's in black, and it has a disabled tag next to it. Just so if you were working in a live system and not in an unused workflow, that you could actually use it. I'm going to move this. All of these sections on the side correlate to the columns that you have in your planning sheet that you're working on. So they should kind of come over one for one. I will say that. If you're not sure about some of these things, you can skip them for now, rough them all in with just their names and their deadlines and things like that. Go back and worry about the rest later, kind of walk through it, understand that, how it works in your head. The way to test this out is to open a new dummy claim and to pick the reason for claim as the name of your workflow. So if you were using umpire, the reason for claim would be umpire. And then it's going to execute that workflow and that workflow only. Mark it as such that, it's draft, everything that kind of goes in there, that you understand what's going on. Also, if you do assign any of your staff to this, so there's a section right here that says assign to office staff, let them know that you are testing a new procedure. So when they get an alert or an action item put in front of them saying, hey, test claim for new reason umpire, go do this thing, they know it's just you testing the system. This way you can open a new claim and click through the process and make sure that things are actually happening the way that you want to. So the way that would look is, let's just enter a new fast entry just for the heck of it. And we're just going to go test person. And we're going to skip, scroll down because that's my rule in ClaimWizard. Lost a dream, home address, and reason for claim. Here it is right here, right? This is the reason why the claim is being opened, not what it turns into later. but why it's being opened. So here we're going to open it and we're going to say umpire. Date of loss, everything else is obviously negotiable, or, if you have it, if you don't. And then, of course, you do need a contract date, even on a fake claim, so that you can just pick, 01/01/2020, whatever it is. And then just keep clicking through next. Maybe you don't need to fill this out right now, honestly, because if it's just a test claim, mortgage companies, etc., etc., maybe put an adjuster on a roll that is you, right? So you can test the notifications. You want to save this claim. And I literally just got a ClaimWizard notification on that and on my iPad. That's how quick it happens, right? So I'm going to go and I'm going to open the claim here. So we're going to take a look at this claim. And what is going to happen is we're going to take a look at this claim and we're going to say, where are the action items? This is brand new. We have nothing in this claim already. We have very minimal information. If you go to action items, you're going to see there are 2 by default that have been issued. The reason why they are both due in 4 days and one is red and one is not is because one is marked as critical and one is marked as important. So criticals, we warn you a little earlier if they start to get close to their deadline, because obviously we want you to work on it. But this is going to say this one is assigned to office staff. This one, welcome packet. I don't have anyone assigned to that one. So if I open this up, there is no assigned to. That's actually a dangerous thing. That's one of the things we're going to be looking for on your spreadsheet to make sure that you have someone responsible for every task. Maybe here I'm going to say the office staff is responsible for doing that, right? So now this will show up on their dashboard, their home dashboard. So with this, okay, office staff, you're responsible for, remember we're in testing mode to do this. Okay, office staff did it. That's fine. Well, that's it. That was kind of a dead-end task, so to speak. It got done. It got documented who clicked it. If you want to add a note, you can add a note here, that sort of thing. Not a problem. But here now, maybe notify a carrier. Maybe we're not going to give it to the office staff. Maybe you're going to go back and say, oh, shoot, that's supposed to be an adjuster. So you can change it and save it. But remember, this is in a specific claim. You would need to go back to your admin to the section for action items and change your master action item list to make sure that number 1 is assigned to adjuster. So whatever the adjuster is on this claim, which was me, that's why my phone buzzed my iPad, I'm going to say fine. So as soon as Mr. or Mrs. Adjuster does this, the next things get automatically documented and created, which is why we say this drags you through your process whether you like it or not. So the very next thing is the adjuster down here is going to send out the letter of representation, whatever they're going to do to know that there's a claim and you're representing it, etc. Now number 2 and 3 happen automatically. So now someone in your office or the adjuster, whichever one you want, it could be any of those people at this point, will go through and call up the carrier, because now you've notified them, right? So you've notified the carrier. You may want to wait a day or two. It's due in 5 days. Call the carrier, get the desk examiner, the field adjuster's name, and maybe in this note in the master, you say, put the entry into ClaimWizard so that it's there for you always to have. So you're going to say, okay, I called and I got the name of the D, E, and the FA, and we're going to click that. Well, that's a dead end one that's not dependent for anything else, so it just gets marked as done. Somebody else now is responsible for requesting documents from the insurance carrier. These are samples and they're vague. You may want to put this exact documents you're asking for, that sort of thing, a certified declaration page, whatever, right? Somebody does that. Now, this is part of a request receive loop. So I know, because how I designed it is if I request something, there is a corresponding task to receive, to mark that I received something. If you send an invoice, you receive money. If you request a document from a carrier, you should receive that document from a carrier. So as you're going through and clicking through these processes, obviously you're not waiting the full time frame for that. You will be able to see if something gets skipped or missed, or if it keeps reoccurring and the same loop keeps happening, you're going to be able to see that. So as soon as I have number 3 that I've requested the documents, now they have due December 23rd, and today's the 3rd, so they have 20 days to get that to us. And these are generally going to be the people that maybe open the mail, get the, whatever, take the phone call to get the fax, whatever the method of communication is from the carrier is what's going to be here. But you can see this gets pushed to the next person automatically and no one ever has to do anything about it. So, okay, I've received the documents from the insurance carrier. What's next? I don't have to think about it. I just click the fact that I've received the documents from the carrier. So if the office staff gets this and takes it and files the document along in the claim, and she clicks yes, the very next thing, she doesn't have to call the adjuster to say, hey, the policy is uploaded into ClaimWizard, in the policies folder, whatever your standard is. But now this is automatically going to populate in their phone on their in their ClaimWizard to say, hey, adjuster, now you have to go review this policy to make sure that the policyholder has sufficient coverages, etc., etc. If he goes through and does this and he says yes, they have sufficient coverage, now the next thing is going to be, okay, office staff goes schedule the inspection with the carrier. And as you can see, the deadlines are automatically done, the documentation is automatically done. You can keep clicking through. So here we have on the bottom schedule. This is a request receive. I'm requesting, scheduling an inspection, and I have completed the inspection. So as you can see through, everything can be dependent on something else. It can be dependent on multiple things, and you can just click through the process until you get to the end. So hopefully that helps show you how actual action items function and how to test them in the system. And then what you're going to want to do is actually go through and then take every single one of your action items that's in your spreadsheet, put it into an action item, into a workflow, and then answer the questions, basically transcribe the information from your spreadsheet directly into ClaimWizard. So one of the things, oops, this is not the right place, Lynette. We have to go into the master copy of it, which is back in your admin section. So here we're going to go in and we're going to take a look at this, notify the carrier, right? Send your letter of representation. So obviously you've named it here, right? And it probably should be descriptive, but not super long. This way, when someone sees it in their list, they're like, okay, I have to send the LOR for this particular claim. Disabled, enabled, again, you want it enabled. When it goes. So when should we create this? This I actually don't recommend doing here. We'll show you how to do it later. Is it critical? Well, yes. If you don't notify the carrier that you're working on the case, and you're not working on the case, how long do you have to do it? So this is an internal thing. Maybe you have a legal requirement of, when I get the contract signed, I have 2 days from the date of contract with my client to send an LOR to the carrier. Maybe you don't have a deadline. You still need to give yourself a deadline, sort of thing. So come up with this number, whether it's put upon you or put upon yourself. Then you're going to decide who this needs to be assigned to. So if an LOR is something that can simply be generated via ClaimWizard and a document template, do that. Have an office staff do it. I have webinars out where I talk about $100 work, $10 work, and $1 work. Sending out a standard letter from an adjuster to a carrier is not $100 work. That's not their core of what they do. It's not their zone of genius. Their zone of genius is hopefully getting claims and negotiating and settling claims. An office staff, their $100 work is generating this paperwork and getting it out fast and efficiently, and making sure it has enough postage and things like that, and the correct address on it, and things adjusters may not be able to pay attention to in the field. So assign it to your office staff. If you have 3 office staff in this group, in the security group, all 3 get this task assigned to them. Whoever happens to pick it up, picks it up. If you are in a larger organization, you can have departments and such, so you can assign it to a department, such as an intake department, or a mortgage processing department, or a billing department, or something like those. But for the majority of public adjusting companies, putting it out to your office staff, of the 3 ladies that sit in the office, Heather is the one that understands that she knows she pulls these and she does it. It doesn't have to be micromanaged. People will get along just fine. And you can scroll down and see claim roles, etc. Like when we put an adjuster on a claim, It's not just for payments and access and other things like that and commission breakdowns. It's adjuster equals Lynette. Send Lynette this notification. Adjuster equals Lynette and Dave. Go send both of them this notification, that sort of thing. Maybe I want to send it to, you know, the estimator on the claim and not the adjuster. You know, like you can pick and choose who on your team needs to do this. So you do have that. And if this is none, it'll say nobody. The task will exist, but no one will be notified that it's there. And it could sit in a black hole. So you're going to want to go through part of your process is to make sure that none of these, and on your spreadsheet, there should, when it says assigned to, there is not one blank field, in there. It could be multiple people. It could be a unique person and a group or however you mix it. But it should never be blank. Otherwise stuff's going to slip. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to say, when I click yes, or someone clicks that they have completed this, what happens? Well, number one, it automatically, the action item automatically gets documented in the claim that it was completed, time, date, person, etc. But maybe after I notify the carrier, the very next phase and piece of the life cycle is going to be scheduling the inspection. So you can move claim phases automatically into the next phase automatically. So if a claim goes all according to plan, which they never do, it will move itself and progress itself just by the fact that you said, yes, I sent out the LOR. All of these other things happen and get documented for you and get assigned and notified and all these things. So you're going to want to, in that case, say, I'm going to put it into scheduling inspection. And then maybe you don't necessarily have to put a log entry in, and you can go through and create them. So right here on the side, it says claim activity events, put it in so it's common verbiage. And you're going to say, okay, notification, insured, notified of loss or whatever. So that you're going to kind of have that document in there so that if you pull these records for any particular reason, you're going to have that in there. This is the same type of thing that if it becomes overdue, the next section down here, and you can add as many as you want. You just keep hitting the green plus button and it'll put as many as you want. They do execute in the order that you give them, but understand when we execute something at ClaimWizard, it's like microseconds apart. So maybe the order matters, maybe it doesn't. Overdue actions, you can leave this blank if you don't need it. You might want to send an email to the office managers or to the executives, they're in there someplace, of the company, just so they say, hey, this was late. So if this is something on your part, I can tell you when employees realize that their boss gets emailed when they're late doing something, they get it done. If there's nothing in here, it just shows up red on the original person's, the assigned to list, and they're just going to have to go in there and do it. It's going to be red. It's hopefully going to annoy them. But if it's something that is marked critical, I always recommend as a best practice, all critical action items have an escalation overdue path assigned to them, right? So maybe if the office person is not getting these LORs out on time, I'm going to I can assign it to someone else. So maybe I assign it to a group of office managers. So now office staff and office managers get this. So the office manager is going to go in, she's going to say a ding, hey, you've got a new task that's related to, well, why am I getting this? Oh, because it's overdue. Or you can reassign. So you take it away from the original person and you give it to the new person. So Lynette with her stories, had a client long time ago, had a problem with this in the office. Everybody said, well, I didn't know she was finished. I didn't know I could send the letter yet, back and forth with a lot of things. When this action item shows up on your list, it has become every prerequisite is completed for it. So there's no reason why an action item on your list shows up that you cannot complete yet, unless people are lying and clicking through, right? So Monday gets an action item, has till Thursday to do it, doesn't do it. Friday comes in, it's off her list. She's like, yay, I don't have to do this anymore because her boss now got it. 1 week, second week, same thing. New employee found her. Actually, they didn't even need to replace her. But in any case, think about how heavy-handed you want to be with this. Now, and that's when you're working with internals, right? So like what I always say, when you have a legal deadline to an attorney or to a carrier, it must always, when you are the one that's required to do something, always mark it critical, always skim your deadline down by a few days, and always have an overdue action. So if something is due in 95 days, make it 85 days. And if it goes late on day 86, technically you still have a couple days to do it. The boss, the manager, the owner, all get, whomever, get emailed, etc. Alarms go off, red lights, sirens in the office, but you still have time to do the task before the claim is at jeopardy. So it's not that we're looking to like scold or reprimand people. We're looking to get the job done, right? So think about it that way. If it is a carrier that has 90 days to do something, well, the deadline has to be 90 days. You can't say 85 days where you haven't done it yet, because they could still kind of pull it in at the last inning. So 90 days, it becomes overdue. The 91st day, you may want to email the owner just so they're aware of it, right? I'm a big component of owners and managers to a certain degree should be there to help when things go a little astray, but when it's business as usual, your staff should be able to take care of it. So if a carrier is late, day 91, automatically you can have it. So overdue action item is add a log entry, and maybe the log entry is, I don't know, I'm just trying to pick something quick. There's hundreds of them in there I've put. That you can say add log entry, a carrier did not comply to deadline in a timely manner, or request for documentation in a timely manner, however you want it. Zero thought, zero interaction, zero remembrance from any person on your team. It gets put in there. If the carrier sends stuff on day 93 and you go on your day, that's fine. If the claim starts going south later on, you can always pull back your records, and you have automatically documented 6 months ago the carrier was late responding to every single request we've ever put in with them, and we have the documentation to prove it. Sinker, right? So that's what I want you to do. Build in your escalation path. So that's what this is. And of course, you can put in as many as you want. And the next we talked about was the notes and instructions. These can be standard that go with the action item every single time. But then when an action item is actually on, I'm just going to cancel out of that. When an action item is actually in your queue to get done, you can make a note in here. So out of paper. I don't know, whatever crazy thing you want to say, right? Or I sent the client a welcome packet, but it got chewed up by their dog. Can you send a note? Like whatever. Like notes, CYA, definitely. We are coming across from that. So this is what I suggest when you're coming across and you're making all of your action items in the system. Put them in, run a dummy claim, see how it works. I didn't like it, make a note and rework it until you need to. So you may want to use that as a starting place, but that's really how you're going to take the action items from your spreadsheet. All you need to do is fill out columns and rows and answer questions. We give that to you, and then fill it out and save it and then test it. It's very important to be able to test it. And as you go through claims and test it, test your scenarios. So you may have an action item in there at a point that says received decision from carrier. Well, that's not saying what the decision was. Yes, I received the decision, but maybe in the instructions it is, if I receive the decisions, go into the claim and change the claim phase to reflect the decision of the carrier. So they decided that it was now undisputed, so you put it into whatever phase. Maybe they decided there was insufficient coverage, so you put it into that phase. Whatever phase it is, those new sets of little action items can then sit there dormant and wait to be kicked off. If you need to go to appraisal, say, oh, the carrier is forcing appraisal, or you want to put it in appraisal, and then you manually, because again, there's a lot of your work that is you, change a claim phase into appraisal. It's going to skip pre-litigation. It's going to ignore billing. It's just going to pick up with that part, and then eventually at the end it comes back into the end, which is billing. Billing is something that is a very difficult process to actually put into action items. once a claim is completely settled, you kind of switch over to accounts receivable, which is our claim ledger section, because you may get one check for the entire loss, or you may get 10 checks for the loss broken up over time. So how you deal with this is more of an accounting issue than an action item issue. So just to let you know that you don't need to necessarily build so many details into the accounting features of ClaimWizard for action items, because the accounting section will take care of that. The AR, the accounts receivable, the claim ledger will give you reminders and updates and deadlines and things like that for the checks and stuff like that. So that once you get to that point, you've graduated from action items.